Who's been your worst podcast guest?
Oh.
Okay.
I'm always likening the role of a real estate agent to a doctor. The bad agents will see a patient and say, you only have a headache and I'm going to give you paracetamol.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Real Ones. Today, I'm joined by the one and only Silvia Eldawi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, and it's great to have you. I'm quite intimidated, to be very honest with you, right?
I'm only 27 episodes ahead of you.
Hey, at the end of this, we'll see. But genuinely, you have such authentic questions to ask, and you've been in the field, so you know what you're doing. I'm an old timer. Yeah, I'm the oversized T-shirt. Bro.
Yeah,
but
and that's the thing. Like, we have a lot to learn from your generation, as do your generation have a lot to learn from us. So I think I'm open to it.
Well, I'm really glad that you agreed to come on. And your background is insane. You were director at Driven Properties. You were co-founder at Keeper, one of the leading PropTechs in the MENA region, pretty much. So you're uniquely positioned in that you've done tech. You've done real estate, and you're doing podcasts and social media.
Yeah, and
so
marketing.
You get it.
Yeah, I get it. And you missed one part in my intro.
Did I?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I missed a lot.
Well, okay, apart from the 15 years real estate experience before that, most recently, who named your podcast?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. So to be fair, you said Real Ones. With the W-O-N-S.
Right, let's backtrack because you said you threw two ideas at me, right?
Yeah,
and it was one is the real something bros.
That real estate bro.
That real estate bro. Or the second option was something with coffee with Kendal. And you asked for my opinion. And I was like, your target audience may not resonate with the word bro.
Yes.
Like, when I hear the word bro, I'm like, oh God, Gen Z.
These
and
kids.
And I was like, oh God. And coffee with Kendal, I was like, people are going to think your name is Kendal, not the brand.
Yeah.
So I said you said you're a real one for that advice. And I said, why don't you call it The Real Ones?
That's true, guys. You have the exclusive.
Yeah.
Silvia Eldawi.
You heard it here first. I am the reason for the name of this podcast.
I made you.
I made you. Don't forget me.
Well, that's awesome. I hope people don't tune out at this point. But
that little history lesson.
Yes. So I want to, before we go into all the, crazy professional accolades and things like that, let's talk about what 7-year-old you wanted to become.
Oh gosh, 7-year-old me, probably, I was obsessed with buttons.
Okay.
So 7-year-old me, not having much business or money knowledge, wanted to be a cashier.
Okay.
In a supermarket. I loved buttons. Anything with buttons, a hi-fi, because it was called a hi-fi at that time. Do you know what a hi-fi is?
No idea.
It's what music used to come out of.
Oh, like when you roll the thing and then
Okay, not
out.
that old. This was more like a, with cassette player.
Okay, gotcha.
And the record player at the top. So I loved buttons. So that's probably not the answer you were looking for, but I was ready to be a cashier or work in a bank or anything where I had to press buttons.
Listen, this is not the strangest thing I've heard at all. I've had people say I wanted to make shawarmas, you know what I'm saying? So, hey, I think that's really cool. And so talk to me about the journey from 7-year-old to who you are today, and your journey from the UK to the UAE. You've been here for long now, and you're probably gonna be here longer than you were in the UK.
Right.
So tell me about that journey.
So how I got into, I was never, when I was in my teens and early 20s, I wasn't very academic. I went to university, dropped out because I got a part-time job, and I ended up connecting more with the locals in the town that I went to university, rather than my flatmates or housemates and university students. So I didn't jam with them so much. And I got this part-time job in Claire's Accessories, which is there's buttons involved. I was fulfilling my 7-year-old dream. And then they offered me an assistant manager role. So I was just like a store person. Okay. And I was ready to pack up my entire education to be promoted to an assistant manager. And at the time, the salary sounded huge, but now on reflection, I make that in a day. But I was like, you know, I sat down with my parents and I had this conversation. It's like, I'm thinking about dropping out of university. So funnily enough, I studied media with film and video production.
Okay.
So I feel like I always knew I had showbiz or entertainment or, you know, cameras, production, entertainment in my DNA. Yeah. But it ended up just being all about Alfred Hitchcock and wide angle, you know, side angle, all these kind of, and I was just like, this is not really what I signed up for. So I said I wanted to quit university halfway through. Right. My dad sat me down and he was like, look, you quit, you make up your own mind, but you're not going to quit and take that job and live out of home. You'll come back to London, live with us, and get a job here. I was like, okay, makes sense. I was very much a live for the weekend kind of person. We didn't really take our job seriously. We, you know, and they were more like temporary money makers rather than careers. And I had 4 holidays a year, and that's all we saved up for. Me and my girly holidays, and that was my only focus. And then my taste in things started to get a bit more expensive. So I got another Saturday job, which was in a real estate agency. And so on Saturdays, they need people to answer the phones, deal with people that walk in, and they'll do the viewings that are not so hot. They're not so serious viewings, potentially time wasters, the ones that most likely aren't going to close. And then they noticed after a few weekends, hold on, who did this viewing on Saturday? Was that Silvia? Did she close that deal out of a Saturday viewing? And then they approached me and they were like, why don't you do this full time? And I was like, oh, I thought you needed to have a degree to be a real estate agent. Little did I know, anyone can be a real estate agent. So I explored it. I got into it, and very quickly the company that I work for recognized she's good enough to make multiple Silvias, right? Like, she's great as she is, but if she could teach other people to do what she's doing, it's a fantastic investment. So I got promoted very early in my career. So I was only ever a real estate agent for 2 years.
Gotcha.
And then I was managing teams, running the show effectively from 2007 until 2017, which is when I moved to Dubai. And
why did you?
So I started suffering from seasonal affective disorder, which is, you know, when it's raining and miserable and the sun goes down at 4 p.m. And I started getting depressed. I noticed it for over 3 years. Every November to February, I would be in a bit of a funk. And I discovered this condition, seasonal affective disorder, and I was like, oh my God, that's me, that's what I have. And I was like, how can I stay in this place that is gonna make me lose or be miserable for a third of the year? And I was like, right, I need to think about moving. And I've got a lot of family in Dubai, so it was always you know, an option. And lo and behold, I ended up here in 2017.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that's what brought me to Dubai.
Well, yeah, and I've heard the stories. You know, you were doing the whole, at one point, up for the Better Homes fee. Hey, I've listened to your podcast. You know?
Thank you for listening.
And then, you know, you obviously went ahead and joined.
So I had a decision to make. Well, there was only 2 companies that I'd interviewed with, and that was Better Homes and Driven Properties. And Driven Properties were quicker off the mark. So I went with them, and I'm glad I did. Actually, that was, you know, it was meant to be that way, and I believe in serendipity, even to what happened before here. God. Can we just say?
No. Let's do it.
Joel sent me to the wrong studio. There's multiple. You were in the Podster studio. And he's in the OG office. And he sent me to one of the newer ones. And then he called me while I was there, because I'm early. I'm always early. 10 minutes, very British. And he was like, I'm coming up. And I was like, he should be here by now. And then you must have realized
I'm in the wrong place. No, well, the thing is, you know, this is kind of like my part-time gig. And, you know, when you're, I was on a sales call like literally 2 hours ago. Before that, I was doing another podcast. Before that, I was actually telling my team what I needed to get done for the day. And then I'm like, you know, we have this way of setting up this invite that they automatically send an invite to you and things like that, but they don't send the guest the invite.
Right.
So you have to do that. And in one of those, because we've got like 20 of these lined up, I messed up in this.
So he sent me to the wrong one.
I did. And now I'm going to go back and review all of them.
Yes, make sure they're at the right studio. But I'm glad it's only 10 minutes away, so it wasn't a big deal. And you kindly sent an Uber to collect me. Thank you.
You know, I sent an exec, and then they gave you a Lexus, and I was just like,
you were trying to go.
I was like, come on, at least give her the Mercedes. You know what I'm saying?
That would have been nice. That would have been a nice touch. But funnily enough, when I walked in there, I said to you, I'm not angry at all. Don't worry, because when I walked in, I saw this woman, and I was like, I know you from Instagram. And I was like, you're Kelly, aren't you? And she was like, yeah. And she was setting up for a book launch. Yeah. And I was like, that's the power of Instagram, is I feel I know you already. I don't follow her. Never met her before. But just seeing her, I was like, I know you from Instagram. Let's start talking. We immediately started, exchanged Instagrams. Yeah. She told me about her book. I actually realized maybe I need to use her or consult her. But had I not seen her, and maybe she's the person that's going to help evolve my own personal brand, because that's something that I'm transitioning through. But I felt like I saw her for a reason at that moment, and I'm here for it. So
no, I love the power of serendipity, and like it's kind of how I also found you on Instagram, right? Like it was just like, who's doing real estate? It's just algorithm serendipity, right? And I think that's what we're aiming for.
So is my SEO working?
It reached me. So I was like, who's big in real estate in Dubai? Right. Let's go, Silvia Eldawi.
Because actually, I get probably like 10 emails a day from SEO people saying, optimize your this, optimize your YouTube, we'll help you with SEO. And I'm like, well, people are finding me still. So
I don't need your services. So, you said earlier, everyone can become a real estate agent. Right. What's the difference between a good one and a bad one?
Okay. So a good real estate agent is not yes, they do have to close deals. Right. But they're not obsessed with the transaction, okay? They are obsessed with the transformation, right? So it's about wanting to genuinely help people and getting satisfaction from helping people find their dream home or dream investment or whatever it may be, and about building relationships with people. So most of the top agents I know, they're only selling to like 4 or 5 clients, right? Because they built up that network or that handful of clients that trust them, enjoy spending time with them, and they're making millions just off those clients. Wow. And that is where every single real estate agent wants to get to that point. But they're not going to get to that point if they're constantly focused on the transaction, right, or chasing the dollars, so to speak. So you've got to, you don't have to love property, but it helps to differentiate yourself somehow by having knowledge or by building. And this is what I'm championing now with PROPOLOGI, and I'm sure we'll get onto that later, but it is about, in a sea full of real estate agents, how do you set yourself apart from the crowd? Because 50% of these agents are not going to be agents in 2 years' time, maybe not even 1 year's time. So and if there is a dip in the market, some people are going to make a lot of money then. So it's a case of, how do you future-proof yourself? How do you make this a career? What do you bring to your clients that is going to make the difference and make you one of those long-standing agents?
And what do you tell them? Because I mean, in the context of social media alone, I had a guest on the other day. His name is Fahd Kaleem, one of the most viral content creators in the UAE. And he was like, he's telling his real estate clients not to do any real estate content. And like, let's say you watch football or something like that. Talk about football for 4 of the posts, and then talk about real estate for 1 of them. And then the client that likes football and wants to buy real estate will come to you. Right. So what does that look like to you?
I agree with him completely. And one thing that I've noticed, which is what I'm aiming to provide for or help for, is maybe 5-10 years ago, until recently, and maybe until COVID, it was all about the agency brand. Okay? So you would have to choose the company that you work for. You would have to make a wise decision because your future and your success and your income is riding on the brand's success. Now, it's a new generation of personal branded agents. Okay? So you go on Instagram. Yes, you'll see a lot of these property tours, not really interesting anymore. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, there was that obsession with, oh, let's have a look at how the other half live. We want to have a look inside. But now you see luxury everywhere. There's no shortage of property porn to some degree. So these property tours are not that interesting. I want to know you. I want to get to know what you're about. I want to feel like I can jam with you. I want to feel that you know more about me than property. You know, because one disadvantage that a lot of real estate agents have is they're selling something they probably don't even own themselves. So if you're a car salesman, you probably get given a car by the manufacturer that you work for. Okay, so you can then say, I know how it feels to drive this car and I've experienced the but when you're a real estate agent that has never bought a property, how can you really empathize with
the home buyer,
with your client, if you've never been in that situation before? And actually, when I went through it, I bought my first property in 2007. And that changed the way I real estate agented, even though I wasn't an agent anymore. But it changed my entire thinking on how we need to show up for our clients, because we don't want to be sold to, or at least we don't want to feel like we're being sold to. I want you to, this is the most expensive thing I'm ever going to purchase, unless I get to the stage where I'm buying private jets and stuff like that. But this is a big decision. It's not a commission. I'm not concerned about your commission or you pleasing your seller or whatever. I need you to guide me to make this big decision. And when there was a stark difference between the UK and the UAE when it came to service and the type of questions that agents ask here versus over there in the UK, and how I would manage my teams is we would train them on how to have that initial phone call. And one of the metrics that we used to look at was, how long is the call? The first call with a buyer shouldn't take less than 8 minutes. And when I'd see that there were some that were 8 to 15, I was like, right, that person's going to buy from you. The average call here, I'm going to find out what it is, because I'm interviewing Property Finder next week, and I'm going to get that stat. But I assume it's going to be around the 2-minute mark, if that. And now majority of the communication is not on phone call, it's done on WhatsApp. So already we're disconnected. There's very little opportunity to build rapport and get that personality across. So for me, PROPOLOGI, we're putting the PR in property, because you have so many different touch points that you can express yourself. You can show what you're presenting, what value you're adding to the buyer or the seller, but you're not getting the opportunity to do it on the phone like we used to. So attract them rather than focus on generating leads. Focus on attracting leads. They come to you when they're ready to buy or ready to sell. They'll think about, that person that's on their Instagram. And it's not just showing properties because that's what they do. No, what are the main questions your clients are asking you? Do a Q&A. Answer some, tell us some funny stories. The art of storytelling has completely disappeared from real estate. So the good agents tell stories. And there's a lot of work to be done, and that's a challenge that I've chewed off.
Wow. Well, you heard it here. Silvia Eldawi saying the best sales strategy is to not sell.
Ooh, I like that. Sell yourself. Sell yourself, and then the rest will come.
Absolutely. So you've, like I said earlier, you have an insight into both PropTech and into real estate brokerages. What gaps do you think there are in the technology vertical in a traditional brokerage today? And like you said, it's moving a lot into the personal brand space. A lot of MENA is on WhatsApp, and soon the UK and the US as well. But what do you think you're missing as an agent today, as a support sort of infrastructure for most brokerages out here? I do agree there's like EXP, there's Compass, there's a few of these folks that are doing a lot in this vertical, but most of them don't. So what do you think they're missing right now?
So I think it is the beginning part, the building up the agents and allowing them to establish their personal brand. A lot of companies are very much focused on their logo, their brand, their reputation, and not really empowering the agents to be who they want to be or say. You know, I know some brands that, like, as an agent of our company, you have guidelines on what you can and can't do on social media.
Right.
You know, and in the UK they call it the brand police. They don't call it the marketing department. They call it the brand police. So, and I feel like it's just outdated now. You hired these people for a reason. Because you believe in them and you think they have potential. Let them flex their muscles. Let them use social media to their advantage, because we know it works. We know. And even like if you look at some of the statistics, like there's a 7x chance of converting a lead that came to a personal brand rather than the company brand. And you 8x your referral rate if it's a personal approach rather than through a brand. People don't follow brands anymore. Okay, you might when you're shopping for clothes, when you're shopping for cars, yes, you're focused on the brand, but now when it comes to doing business with people, it's about the person, not necessarily the brand behind them. Completely. So that's one thing that's missing. Training, development, education, big problem. There's every company is doing it in their own way. Some will outsource, or they will get an external trainer in once a month. Or they will have an in-house trainer who, quite frankly, has never been a real estate agent or never experienced, or doesn't really have their finger on the pulse. And if you're a real estate agent and have been for the past 2 years, your needs have probably changed 20 times in the last 24 months because the industry is moving. The problems, the challenges keep moving. So you need to be moving with the times when it comes to training, and even the algorithms are changing. So when it comes to social media and marketing and personal branding and all of these things that we're talking about, they evolve. So you need to keep moving with the times rather than relying on a textbook that was written 5 years ago that's already outdated.
I think that textbook in Dubai happens to be like your portals, and so does in London and in other markets. And I don't understand why portals seem to be this, holy grail of leads. I think it's actually very misleading. I think that if you go onto a platform and just are window shopping, time wasters, like you said earlier, you don't really, get quality leads out of that. And you have to message each and every one of them. And then most of them are just like not actually interested in buying a property.
Oh, well, like I disagree. I feel like if I'm sending a lead through Property Finder or Bayut or any one of the property portals across the globe, to get to that stage of actually sending the inquiry, I've probably done 2 months worth of window shopping.
Oh, really?
Right. So people start their search online. Everyone is starting their search online because there's no alternative. Agreed? So you're starting your search online. You're looking at the different areas. You're looking at the different price brackets. You're going in. You're having a look at the photos. You're ruling out properties based on what the information that the portals are providing you. And then you start taking the leap of, I'm ready to start going out and viewing. That journey is broken because when I pluck up the courage, because it does take courage to start contacting agents and go through that process. It means I'm ready to close. I'm ready to do business. Immediately, the process is flawed because I see a listing and it says Joel, Arabian Ranches specialist. I call expecting to speak to Joel. I end up getting through to receptionist, who ask me for my number, my email address, and it's like, well, all my details are already in the portal, So this is when it starts breaking down, because we break it down. The brokerages have processes in place which end up making the process, yes, it means that they protect their clients' data, they manage to capture everything, but my journey is already starting to feel painful.
Yeah.
So, okay, Joel is currently on a viewing, but we'll get him to call you back. Joel may not call me back for a day.
Yeah.
And already I'm beginning that
going
frustration. I'm going to someone else. Maybe it's listed with someone else. So I don't think anyone shops around for fun. I don't think anyone calls real estate agents for fun. Every lead that you get has a need, has a pain.
Yeah.
And depending on how good you are, you will ask the right questions to discover that pain. And I'm always likening the role of a real estate agent to a doctor. So what we tend to do is the bad agents will see a patient and say, you only have a headache and I'm going to give you paracetamol. You don't want the paracetamol? Okay, bye.
Yeah.
A good doctor will say, describe your symptoms to me.
Right.
Have you had this before? They will go into your medical history.
Right.
They will try and understand what you want to achieve, from treatment, perhaps. And then they will diagnose you. And then after they've diagnosed you, they're going to prescribe. And that prescription is, I've heard everything that you've told me.
Yeah.
And based on that, as the expert, I'm going to recommend we view these properties. And here's why. That's what a good real estate agent will do.
But you see, that's a buying agent though, right? That's not a portal first. And I think that the buying agent understands exactly what you're saying. Describe your problem and I'll figure it out. Trust me, and I'm worth the commission, basically. But if you're just looking on a portal, again, you're just saying top, highest, it depends on what you're looking for. I guess if it's for a primary, you're kind of agnostic on, do I buy this today? Because realistically speaking, you probably got a big bonus at work or something like that, and you're ready to put down down payment. There's no urgency there to close. So you can look, but you can look for a long time.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's a big decision.
Exactly.
How long does it take you to buy a car? 3 months. Okay, so this is
3
like
years,
10.
actually.
Okay, right. So you've got to be accepting that this is even a bigger decision than buying a car. So it might take 6 to 9 months.
Exactly.
Now, if you already decide, I'm not patient enough to wait for that person to get serious, then that's what separates you from
Exactly, right? But you're going to the agent, and that agent, like you said, needs their personal branding, those kind of things to keep you, not just the one-time pick up on the phone and be like, oh yeah, I have this listing. You don't want this listing? Then leave me alone. Right?
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like you say that's a buying agent. No, every agent in Dubai is a listing agent. If you're not listing, you may as well tap out of the industry. So, okay, so there's some who are off-plan agents. They're still listing properties for the developer. They're still working for the developer.
Sure.
So, we don't really have that model here where I'm just acting on behalf of the buyer.
Yeah.
And actually that agent that's a weak agent because they're not putting in the graft to find sellers.
Yeah.
And that's where the power is. That's where the real money is by having sellers, and then the buyers come to you because you're listing on the property portals, or the agents will contact you because they don't have their own listings, so they have to rely on you. So the power is with the seller's agent, the landlord's agent.
I think just that the incentives are misaligned a little bit, though, right? Because there's a reason that we have the buying and selling agent concept. I agree that there's alpha in being the listing agent, for sure. You make more money. But that said, I think the listing agent is more of a one-time kind of person, whereas the buying agent is a little bit more long-term kind of a thing, right?
And I mean, it depends how often do you buy, so the buyer might not need you again for another 10 years. But that seller, if they're an investor or a portfolio owner,
way more valuable.
Way more valuable. And also, I'm going to, as a kind of social proof, I'm going to take the recommendation of a seller more than a buyer. So a buyer, oh, Joel, you recommend your agent, but they only work in this area. So it's kind of like, okay, well, I'm not looking in that area. I'm looking in DIFC. So having someone who's able to sell across Dubai and advise and is trusted, that's the boss in this. Yeah.
No, well, that's wisdom, So in the US, obviously, we've just had the NAR settlement, $480 million. And we've had this commission discussion quite a lot on this podcast as well. What do you think is going to happen in the context of American brokerages looking at our part of the world now? Because all of their stock prices are down 10%, right? Like, let's say the tech companies that service them, like you're talking about your Compasses and your Zillows and things like that, where do they go and what's their entry point to?
Yeah, it's funny because we always, the Middle East has, or any tech companies and real estate companies, we always looked at the US and the UK as the North Star. And this has just highlighted, it was, not just flawed. There was nothing flawed about it, but they just got,
Times are changing.
Times are changing. Yeah. And so I think it's fantastic for the US. I think it's a great thing because it now means you have to earn your crust as a proper buyer's agent. You have to have those difficult, you can't just ride off the coattails of the selling agent, the listing agent anymore. So it means that you have to decide, where am I best placed? And we had that decision to make here in the UAE as well, whereas am I better off servicing sellers or am I better off positioned as a buyer agent? Okay. And really hone that down.
Right.
Your craft, really kind of work on, I am the buyer's agent for this niche, whatever it may be, or I'm the trusted go-to for this niche. So I think it's good for the US. There's going to be a serious cull of agents. Maybe like half of them will be wiped out, but that only benefits the good ones. And because it's been too easy, too long.
Yeah, I guess my next question is a little bit is less so real estate. Are you happy?
Well, I think the fact that I had to think about it probably says no.
I don't know. Is that what that says?
I'm happier.
Yes. What is ultimate happiness?
It's funny you say that. I am happy, and I'll tell you why. Because I had this conversation when I was telling my dad I was going to drop out of university. He was like, why? And I was like, I'm not happy. And I was trying to throw a straw. I'm not happy. And he's like, Silvia, what is happiness? Happiness is your health, sleeping in a comfortable bed at night, and eating a good meal. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Let's not kind of put money on it or turn it into a material thing. Happiness is when you've got look at what's going on in the world. We have no excuse not to be happy. So yes, mental illness and is a real thing, but ultimately I am happy. I have no real reason to complain. So I should just be a bit more grateful. That's why I couldn't answer you immediately, because you associate happy with smiling all the time. I'm not. As a newly entrepreneur, as kind of, I am beating myself up about a lot of things, and I'm sure you feel the same, where it's like, okay, it's just not good enough, or why are you going to sleep at 3 a.m.? No, carry on, there's more to do. So there's a lot of pressure that I put on myself, which masks the feeling of euphoria or happiness. When I was more 9 to 6 or and I had my weekends, I made sure I enjoyed my weekends. I mean, I've stopped sunbathing. I last week I went to my makeup store that I usually get my stuff from, and I was like, I need a lighter foundation. She's like, oh, okay, well, you were using the wrong color before. And I'm like, no, I was sunbathing way more often before, but I haven't sunbathed for the past 4 months. So I need to go down a shade or two. So yeah.
I appreciate that you might think that I understand what the whole foundation thing means, but
my fake skin color, I needed to go down a few notches.
So that's interesting. And you talked about family as well. How have they kind of shaped your ability to take these, entrepreneurial decisions that you've taken? And what I don't know what your background is ethnically speaking?
So I'm Sudanese.
Okay.
Both my parents are Sudanese and Muslim. I was born in Khartoum, Sudan, and we moved to the UK when I was maybe 1 year old. So I've lived in London my entire life and grew up there. And, you know, I'm grateful to my parents for making that move, because when I look at, you know, they left their I think my dad's parents they'd passed, but they left everything they knew to give us a better life in the UK. Yeah. And I look at, you know, the life I'm living versus some of, you know, had we stayed, it would have been a completely different life. So I think that decision to come to the UK, of course, changed everything. But it also probably affected things like, okay, had we stayed in Sudan, I'd probably be a grandma by now. You know, I'd be married with children who have children. So, but also going to the UK changed the mindset on marriage and all of that.
What part of, you know, I don't know about how it is for you, but Indian people, right, when we go from place to place, sure, the places change, but we carry a lot of Indian culture wherever we go. What part of that affects your day-to-day today?
Sudanese judginess. Yeah. Judginess. So the Sudanese community is known for like side eye, you know, especially the women. It's kind of like judgy. And so my mum's always kind of, I think my mum's just constantly praying, or got some of the, you know, constantly praying against the evil eye.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So I'm like, Mum, this is what I do now.
Because
you know,
you're out there.
I'm out there. Yeah. What can I do? I'm not going to shut down my Instagram just because you're scared of the evil eye. So, yes, as a result, I do try and protect myself with a few spiritual things. Like I play, there's a surah, like in the Quran, called Surah Baqarah, which is, I don't know I think it's the first one, or it's super good. It's like super blessings. Yeah. And it's 2 hours long, recited. And I play that on YouTube in the morning, just to kind of protect me as much as I can. And that's me kind of getting into my spirituality and trying to kind of, you know, embrace that side of things. But that's one downside of the culture. And there's that kind of pressure to, okay, well, you know, why go through all of this? Why don't you just marry someone, you know? And it's like, well, I didn't, and I'm not going to kind of put my life on hold until that happens. So
tell me about, this is kind of the bit that everyone's been waiting for, right? Who's been your worst podcast guest? Okay, maybe we can't get into it.
No, I mean, I'll tell you the story. Yeah. I'm not sure I can say who he is, though.
I think he will know.
He will know. He definitely knows. So there was one episode where I actually took the decision to not even air it.
Wow.
Because it was one of my early episodes. And I don't know if you're at this stage where it took me maybe 10 episodes to really actually just get into a conversation and hear everything. I was so obsessed at the beginning with making sure I asked the questions and I didn't miss something, that I wasn't necessarily listening to what was being said. And I didn't pick up on cues, or, you know, it didn't flow that well. So I was so set on getting the questions out that I didn't listen to the answers. And had I listened to the answers, I would have heard that he kept repeating, you know. And some questions, he didn't even answer them. He kind of just waffled on a tangent. And so I'm very hands-on with post-production. And when I played it back, I was just like, I was 5 minutes in and I was like, this is terrible. I'm terrible. He's terrible. He keeps repeating himself. He had his leg up on his knee. And the way he was sat was even quite arrogant. And I was just like, there is nothing good about this.
How do you sit arrogantly?
It was like, you know, like
he manspreading?
He was manspreading. It was a total manspread.
No.
And he had his arm up on, it was terrible. Yeah. So I didn't want to make the decision alone. Yeah. So I sent it to him. I was like, listen, I think it's really bad, and here's what I'm thinking, that we re-record. Yeah. But you watch it, you tell me how you feel. Yeah. And I sent it to him. It was like 40 minutes long. He called me after 5 minutes. He was like, I've just watched it with my wife. It's terrible. I was like, thank God you agree with me.
Yeah.
So we cut it.
Yeah.
And I was like, you've got a really bad habit. Because I also picked up a lot of bad habits. So I have a bad habit of interrupting guests. I blink a lot, and I still do that. And I would do this, like I would scratch my head a lot. And it actually gave off the impression that I was bored when you're scratching your head rather than thinking. So I've done as much as I can to address those, but we're still not quite there. So I said to him, look, we'll reshoot, but you have to work on your, and yeah, so it's all good. No hard feelings, but I'm glad I didn't post it because it wouldn't have done either of us any favors.
Okay.
So that was my worst episode.
Yeah. And then you had, I mean, I don't know how you deal with the hand positioning because I've been struggling with it, as you might have seen.
Well, my set's different because I've got armchairs and there's no table in front of us. There's a coffee table on the side, so it actually allows the body language to be a bit more conversational rather than interviewee, if that makes sense. So but hands, it's a hard one.
It's a hard one, right? Like, and I have the worst memory in the world, so I have to literally, I don't know if everyone can see this, but I've got a little book over here.
I'm the same, but I upgraded to a branded iPad. You're gonna move away from that.
This is the difference between a podcast expert and a beginner.
Yeah, life gets so much easier with the iPad. But I try not to reinvent the wheel, and my advice to you is look at the people who are already successful in this space. Yeah. So if you're going to have a desk set up, which they do in Podster, you follow Stephen Bartlett, the largest Diary of a CEO, best podcast out there, in my opinion, and do what he does. He always has his hands underneath, okay? And he's just very straight, and his guests are always hands underneath as well. Yeah. And it's more about, there's not much fluff going on, there's no distraction. It's all about the conversation. So, for me, there's so many different people that are doing the sofa setup as well. So I could get carried away, but you always look at who is successful in what you want to do. Yeah. I'm not saying copy paste them, but take inspiration from them.
No, I will fully copy paste. Like, I mean, like 100%. Like, I mean, I think a lot of people understand that repeatable content and like also certain styles that work are just, it just makes good content strategy. So you've obviously, taken the space by storm. There's a lot of women in the space that are trying to make their mark. And I've seen you like do a ton of initiatives with was it Cityscape? I think, And tell me what you're doing in that space right now, and how are you bringing more women into the space and helping them, get in their groove when they're just getting started out and things like that.
I've retired. I've retired. I've hung up my boots. Okay. This is the first year where I've had a completely different angle when it comes to International Women's Day and that whole narrative of women in real estate and, there's a glass ceiling and we have to support each other and elevate each other. And I was like, we're already up there. We're already up there. Someone just go check on the guys for a second. Check out how the guys are doing, because if you step into any real estate brokerage or PropTech company, most of the departments are headed by women. Yeah. If you open up their books, most of the top sellers are women. Okay. Probably 30 to 40% of the agents are women. Yeah. This industry does not have an issue, a diversity issue. And I think if we keep talking about International Women's Day and let's celebrate, and we bring cupcakes in and, look at this, mum, she did this and she achieved that. Surely it's just reinforcing the message that it's hard to do when actually we've proved that it's not hard to do. We're doing it. Yeah. And there is no glass ceiling apart from the glass ceiling, especially in this region, the glass ceiling that we place on ourselves. So there've been a lot of conversations I've had recently on my podcast where we've talked about cancelling Women's Day, cancelling women-only panels. Mm-hmm. Because again, it's kind of like, do we need to create a women-only panel because they need to be heard? Because if we put one woman in a panel with 4 men, she won't be heard. Oh, yes, she will. Mm-hmm. So we don't need to segregate conference panels anymore into women only, and it's not a wedding.
And even if you do, to be honest, right? I think you should have a guy on there, right? Like, make the dude feel uncomfortable as hell.
But it's funny you say that because I moderated a women-only panel for the International Property Show a couple of weeks ago, and when because I speak to all the panelists beforehand, and one of them, she asked me a question and it threw me off, and I was like, oh my God. She said, Silvia, can I just ask you why there are no men on this panel? And I was like, do you know what? It was Farah from Beytukum.
Oh, okay.
She's like, why? If we're talking about women, we need men on the panel to have this discussion. We can't just talk around in circles by ourselves. And I was like, that is a fantastic point. Like, if we're going to talk about any kind of inequality, which I don't feel there is in our industry, if we're going to have these conversations, let's have men up on the panel as well. How would a man feel going on a women-only panel? Probably he wouldn't accept. But yeah, so we need to scrap those female panels. And as a result of that episode where the subject was raised, I've had several other conversations, and all the women are saying, scrap the female panels. We don't need them anymore. We'd rather be taken seriously in the industry rather than based on gender. So put us up there with the male, our male equivalents, and let us have any conversation. We don't need a separate panel. And then the third part of it was the awards, the female categories. Again, this month there was a large award ceremony.
The Beirut one?
The Beirut Awards. And the first award of the night was Influential Women of the Year Award. And the last award is what? The Best Agency of the Year. So that immediately tells you that the Women's Award is the least important one, or, has
they
the
make
least
it look
weight.
Like a consolation prize or
right.
something like
So
that.
it's like, thanks for turning up.
Okay.
And actually, one of the women who won that award said, it would have meant a lot more to me, this award would have meant a lot more, had I been up against some of the influential men. So we don't want to be competing in women-only categories. This is not sport. We want to be competing with.
Just look at Jade Mills, right? Like, she's like, what, in the US done like what, $8-9 billion in sales herself.
I don't know who she is.
Right. It's pretty massive. And then you have Ryan Serhan, it's probably on the 3 bill, 4 bill kind of mark. I'm not sure about the numbers, but there's, like you said, there's no, I would say they're doing better.
I interviewed on my podcast Bianca D'Alessio, who's the #1 top New York agent, and she's a woman. So it's like,
wow.
It's not an issue in real estate. It's not a real estate specific issue that we need to keep going on about.
So I ask this to every phenomenal guest that we have on this amazing show.
Oh, well, you better ask me then.
Yes. What advice would you give your 21-year-old self?
Oof. What advice would I give my 21-year-old self? I know. I would have bought way more property than I did.
Classic. Okay.
That's exactly what I would have done. I was in a position to know and afford the best deals, and I didn't. I sooner went on holiday, sooner bought a handbag, sooner bought shoes, and spent my money, wasted my money, rather than investing it. So I should have a way bigger portfolio than I do.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, thank you so much. This has been such an insightful podcast, for me at least.
I still don't know what you do.
Yeah,
but I'll find out. Yeah.
It's all right. Everyone will know soon enough.
Okay. Looking forward to it.
But this has been this episode of The Real Ones. Thank you, Silvia Eldawi, for joining us. And we'll
pleasure.
catch you on the next episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Whether it's on Spotify, whether it's on YouTube, wherever you're watching or listening to this right now, subscribe.
And that's the podcast.